Narrator. Welcome back to the English Learning Podcast. The idea of finding a new place to live, a space that truly feels like home, is often filled with excitement. The promise of a fresh start, new surroundings, and a blank canvas for your life. But for anyone who's embarked on this journey, the reality of apartment hunting can often be a complex, competitive, and sometimes even daunting process. It's not just about finding four walls and a roof. It's about balancing dreams with budgets, desires with availability, and managing the emotional roller coaster that comes with making such a significant life decision. Understanding the various stages, potential pitfalls, and effective strategies of apartment hunting can empower you to approach the search with greater confidence and less stress. Today, we're diving deep into the relatable and often challenging world of apartment hunting. We'll hear from two individuals who have navigated this market from different perspectives. Sophia, a meticulous planner who relies on research and preparation, and Liam, who has faced unexpected challenges and learned to adapt on the fly. By listening to their experiences and shared wisdom, you'll not only enhance your English comprehension but also pick up valuable vocabulary for discussing real estate, budgeting, decision-making, and emotional resilience. Stay with us until the end for a comprehensive practice session that will help you articulate your own housing search experiences and prepare for future ones. Get ready to explore the quest for the perfect place to call your own. Dialogue section. Sophia: Hi Liam. It's great to connect. I was just reflecting on my last apartment hunt, and how much strategic planning went into finding the right place. What's your general approach to apartment hunting? Are you a meticulous researcher or do you prefer a more intuitive, on-the-ground search? Liam: Hi Sophia. Always good to chat. I try to be strategic, but honestly my apartment hunts often turn into a series of unexpected challenges. My last search involved a highly competitive market where apartments were being leased almost immediately after being listed. It was a real race against time and I felt incredibly pressured. Sophia: Oh, the dreaded competitive market. I always dread that feeling of missing out. My biggest fear is falling in love with a place that's completely out of my budget or has hidden issues. I've heard horror stories about tenants discovering major problems like mold or noisy neighbors after signing the lease. It would be a huge financial setback and a source of constant frustration. Liam: That sounds like an absolute nightmare. My recurrent challenge is usually underestimating how much paperwork and how many hoops you have to jump through. You find a place you like and then suddenly there's a mountain of applications, background checks, and financial disclosures. It's a constant underestimation of the bureaucratic process. Sophia: I can absolutely relate to that. The administrative burden can be overwhelming. What's one unexpected win you've had during an apartment hunt? Something that surprisingly went right against all odds. Liam: Believe it or not, finding an apartment with all my must-have features, a quiet neighborhood, in-unit laundry, and pet-friendly, all within my budget, felt like a major triumph. I honestly thought I'd have to compromise on at least one. And another time, the landlord was incredibly understanding when my previous lease dates didn't perfectly align with the new one. That kind of flexibility was so reassuring. Sophia: That's truly wonderful. Those small moments of flexibility or finding a perfect fit can genuinely turn the tide on what is inherently a stressful process. For me, a profound win is simply having a clear, positive interaction with the potential landlord or property manager. That transparency prevents so much anxiety. And securing an apartment on my first or second viewing, avoiding endless open houses, that's always a major victory. Liam: Oh, avoiding endless open houses is a dream come true. What's the most memorable mishap you've personally experienced while apartment hunting? Something that now makes for a good story, even if it was awful at the time. Sophia: We once arrived at an apartment viewing that had been scheduled for weeks, only to find the building completely condemned and boarded up. The listing agent had apparently failed to update their records. We were literally standing in front of a derelict building, feeling utterly baffled, and wasted a whole afternoon. It taught me the importance of confirming appointments and doing a quick online check of the address beforehand. Liam groans: Oh, that's just awful. My most memorable mishap was when I thought I'd found the perfect place, put in an application, and then found out it was a scam. a fake listing designed to collect application fees. I lost money and precious time. It was a huge wake-up call about being vigilant and doing your due diligence. Sophia, goodness. How on earth did you resolve that predicament? That's a true test of caution. Liam, I had to report it to the authorities in my bank, and fortunately I managed to get the money back eventually, but it was a very stressful period. It definitely built character, and I learned a lot about trusting my gut and verifying everything. What strategies do you typically use to mitigate the stress and potential chaos of apartment hunting? Sophia, I try to be incredibly thorough with my research up front. I make detailed checklists of my non-negotiables versus my nice-to-haves, research neighborhoods extensively, and create a realistic budget. And I always aim to have all my documents ready, proof of income, references, so I can apply immediately if I find the one. That significantly reduces last-minute panic. Liam, research is smart. I usually just browse online and then try to see places, which explains why I hit so many unexpected issues. I'm actively trying to learn to be more proactive with my paperwork preparation and setting clearer expectations for what I might actually find. It's like a pre-hunt ritual. Sophia, absolutely. The more prepared you are, the less overwhelming the process. Do you have any advice for someone facing their very first apartment hunt, perhaps feeling completely overwhelmed by the prospect? Liam, I'd say first set realistic expectations. The perfect place rarely exists, so be prepared to compromise. Second, don't be afraid to ask questions about the lease, the neighbors, the building's history. And third, always trust your gut feeling about a place and a landlord. Something feels off, it probably is. Sophia, excellent practical advice. And perhaps on that note, celebrate the small victories throughout the search. Like successfully scheduling 5 viewings, or finally getting a call back about an application. Liam, definitely. Every viewing attended, every question asked, every application submitted, is a mini triumph on the apartment hunting journey. It's a marathon, not a sprint, and every step forward counts. Practice section. Part 1. Vocabulary of apartment hunting. Let's review some key vocabulary and phrases related to apartment hunting that Sophia and Liam used. A race against time. A situation where one must hurry to complete something before a deadline. Think about, why can apartment hunting feel like a race against time? Pressured. Feeling stressed or constrained by demands or obligations. How does a competitive market make you feel pressured? Horror stories. Accounts of very unpleasant or frightening experiences. What are some horror stories you've heard about apartment hunting? Financial setback. A problem that delays or prevents progress in one's financial situation. How could a bad lease lead to a financial setback? Frustration. The feeling of being upset or annoyed as a result of being unable to change or achieve something. What commonly leads to frustration during the apartment search? Underestimation. The act of estimating something to be smaller or less important than it actually is. What aspects of apartment hunting do people often underestimate? A major triumph. A great success or victory. An outstanding achievement. What would constitute a major triumph for you during an apartment hunt? A reassuring. Making someone feel less worried or afraid. Restoring confidence. Why is flexibility from a landlord reassuring? Turn the tide. To reverse the general development or course of a situation. How can a positive interaction turn the tide on a challenging apartment search? Anxiety. A feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease, typically about an event or something with an uncertain outcome. How does a lack of transparency cause anxiety during apartment hunting? A major victory. A significant win or success. What makes securing an apartment on the first viewing a major victory? Memorable mishap. An unforgettable, unfortunate accident or piece of bad luck. What was your most memorable mishap while apartment hunting? A condemned. Building declared legally unfit for habitation. What does it mean if a building is condemned? Baffled. Totally bewildered or perplexed. How might you feel baffled during a confusing apartment viewing? A scam. A dishonest scheme, a fraud. What signs might indicate an apartment listing is a scam? A vigilant, keeping careful watch for possible dangers or difficulties. Why is it important to be vigilant during apartment hunting? Due diligence. Reasonable steps taken by a person to satisfy a legal requirement, especially in buying or selling. Why is doing your due diligence crucial before signing a lease? A resolve. To settle or find a solution to a problem or difficulty. How do you resolve issues like a potential scam during your search? Trusting your gut. Relying on your intuition or instinct. Why is trusting your gut important when assessing an apartment or landlord? Mitigate the stress. To make the severity, seriousness, or painfulness of stress less intense. What strategies can mitigate the stress of apartment hunting? Research upfront. Conducting thorough investigation or study at the beginning of a process. Why is research upfront vital for apartment hunting? Non-negotiables. Things that cannot be debated or changed. Absolute requirements. What are your non-negotiables when searching for an apartment? Nice-to-haves. Features or qualities that are desirable but not essential. What are some nice-to-haves on your apartment wish list? A last-minute panic. A sudden, overwhelming feeling of anxiety or fear experienced at the very end of a period. How does being prepared with documents reduce last-minute panic? Paperwork preparation. Getting all necessary documents ready. Why is paperwork preparation important for quick applications? Set realistic expectations. To form a clear and achievable understanding of what is possible. Why is it important to set realistic expectations when apartment hunting? A mini triumph. A small but significant success or victory. What constitutes a mini triumph during the apartment search? Part 2. Reflecting on your apartment hunting experiences. Think about your own experiences with finding a place to live, whether it was an apartment, house, or room. Answer the following questions. Have you ever had an apartment hunting story that was particularly memorable for its humor, stress, or unexpected twists? Describe it. What was one win you experienced during an apartment hunt, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant at the time, e.g., getting a viewing, a quick approval? What was the biggest setback you faced during a housing search, and what did you learn about your own resilience or problem-solving skills in handling it? Do you prefer to do extensive research up front, or do you prefer to see many places first? Explain your preference. If you could give one piece of advice to someone starting their very first apartment hunt, what non-negotiable advice would it be? How does having a contingency plan, or knowing how to resolve unexpected issues influence your stress levels during a housing search? What makes you trust your gut about a place or a landlord during a viewing? Part 3. Practicing phrases for discussing apartment hunting. Imagine you are talking to a friend about your current or past apartment hunting experience. Practice using the following phrases in your conversation. I'm caught in a real race against time with this apartment hunt. I need to make sure I don't underestimate the amount of competition out there. My main goal is to find a place that hits all my non-negotiables. I'm hoping for a major triumph and to avoid any more horror stories. What's your best advice for mitigating the stress of constant searching? I really need to focus on my paperwork preparation so I'm ready to apply. I think setting realistic expectations is a total game changer in this market. You just have to be prepared to stay vigilant for scams. Every viewing attended, even if it's not the one, feels like a mini triumph. Practice incorporating these phrases naturally into your conversation. Part 4. Role-playing a scenario. Advising a first-time apartment hunter. Imagine a friend who is feeling completely overwhelmed by their upcoming first apartment hunt asks you for advice. You want to share both the realities and how to stay positive and effective. Take turns offering advice and expressing concerns. Apartment hunting can definitely be a complex journey, but with a bit of planning and the right mindset, it's manageable. My biggest piece of advice is to do your research up front and define your non-negotiables. Friend, that's smart. I hadn't even thought of that level of detail. What else should I prepare for? I'm worried about unforeseen mishaps. Well, you really need to prepare for the unexpected. Something will almost certainly go wrong, like a listing being inaccurate or a competitive market. You just have to be ready to resolve problems calmly. Friend, oh no. That sounds incredibly stressful and could lead to real frustration. How do you deal with that when things don't go to plan? I try to trust my gut about a place. Something feels off, walk away. And focus on those mini triumphs. Every successful viewing, every question asked is a step forward. It helps mitigate the stress. Friend, that's a good mindset. Any tips for avoiding the common horror stories I hear about scams? Definitely be vigilant about listings that seem too good to be true, and always do your due diligence. And seriously, don't underestimate the amount of paperwork preparation needed. Have everything ready. Friend, I'm also worried about the pressure in a competitive market. It can feel like a race against time, but try to set realistic expectations. The perfect place rarely exists, but a great place does. And remember, flexibility can really turn the tide. Friend, this has been so helpful. It makes me feel a bit less baffled and more prepared. Narrator. As Sophia and Liam's experiences vividly illustrate, the journey of apartment hunting is far more than a simple transaction. It's an adventure that tests our patience, sharpens our organizational skills, and ultimately, builds our emotional resilience. From navigating bureaucratic hurdles to celebrating the small victory of finding that perfect feature, each search creates its own unique set of anecdotes. By being mentally prepared for the complexities, embracing thorough preparation, and appreciating even the smallest strides, we can navigate these significant life transitions with greater ease and confidence, ultimately finding a place that truly feels like home. Thank you for joining the English Learning Podcast today. We hope this episode has provided you with valuable language and comprehensive insights for understanding and discussing apartment hunting. We'll be back soon with more engaging conversations to support your English.